This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle and paperback. You too can become a sponsor by heading on over to patreon.com/stories, the true and the fictional. Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Stories, the True and the Fictional. We've got another great guest, but before we bring him in, Ryan, the fans are dying to know, are you still living the dream?
I am living the dream, living a very vivid dream. It's very early over here this morning, and as most of our viewers know, even when we do a 10 a.m. Interview, I'm generally still half asleep. So, seeing it's just nice and early over here in Australia, I'm pumped up, I'm living the dream, I'm excited to speak to our today's guest.
Awesome. Well guys, check out our sponsors, Rebecca Cassells, Martin Kearns. We have a Patreon now, so head on over there. You'll get early episodes. All our episodes will be up sometimes a week in advance, and we're going to get some extra content. So go on over there, $5 a month. And if you're American, that's like $2.50 a month, because we're Australians and our dollar is weak. So take advantage of that. Take advantage.
And the more people we get on Patreon, the earlier I'll get up every day. So if you want more early interviews with our lovely guests from the UK and the US, subscribe, pay the $5. Jamie will send me a message every time we get a subscriber, and I'll get up 15 minutes earlier every day for every subscriber we have. So if we get like 100 subscribers, that means I'm not sleeping at all. So just jump on, give us some support, show us some love, and get the episodes early and some bonus content.
There you go. That's the spiel done. So let's bring in our guest, Ben Schenkman. How are we?
I am fantastic. How are you two?
Well, we know how Ryan is.
The dream.
Right, living the dream. I hope it's a good dream.
We're going to have to...
It's a good dream. It's a good dream this morning. Very happy to have you on and to meet you. So yeah, I'm excited.
So for those who don't know, who is Ben Schenkman?
So Ben Schenkman is an urban fantasy author. I write books that are based in New Haven, Connecticut. So for anyone who's familiar with the U.S., it's or not actually. Let me do it that way. It's in the northeast of the United States, in Connecticut, and it's where Yale University is. Though the books don't specifically deal with Yale as a university. It's just that's the landmark everyone's aware of.
So are there Yale students in there? Do Yale students come in to your books every now and again?
So funny you should ask. I graduated from Southern Connecticut State University, which is the state university that's like a few miles down the road from Yale. And I'm not going to lie, we make fun of Yale constantly. That's just how it works, the state university versus the Ivy League. Ivy League, they can afford to protect themselves. So I'll say I take a few shots, I'm sure, in my books.
And you have to. That's a school spirit. You got to get even though like our system over here in Australia is different. Like we have universities, and I went to university. We never really had that rivalry that you guys have with colleges and community colleges and then like your Ivy Leagues and then your state schools. We don't really have that rivalry. So I've always been fascinated by watching the shows that come out of America on how deep that rivalry goes. And is that actually is it accurate as portrayed in those movies and TV shows?
It can be. It really depends on like what region you're in. Especially when it gets into like big sports team rivalries at the college level, it's bad. It's bad. Like college sports, depending on which teams win, there'll be riots in the streets and cars burning. It really depends on where you are.
Wow. I think the only college sport we have is we have so our football over here is a bit different to the NFL. It's called the NRL, the National Rugby League. Mm-hmm. And we have something, I don't know what it's called now, but it used to be called the Commonwealth Bank Cup, which our our schools would have teams in, but it never got to the level that your guys' college football is. Seriously, like if you can make 4 or 5 TV shows over the span of the last 20 years on just college football, then you know it's real. Sometimes it feels like it's more popular than the actual NFL.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It can be.
That's insane. And just a question I had, seeing as you said you based all your books in New Haven, Connecticut, are you actually from New Haven in Connecticut?
Yeah, so I grew up in it's called the Valley. So New Haven County. I grew up outside of that. I went to college in New Haven. I lived in New Haven for a period of time. It's like my old stomping grounds. Even now,
Mhm.
I live in Western Massachusetts, so I'm only about an hour and a half from New Haven. I go there pretty regularly. I was actually just there this weekend.
Okay. So it is true. You write what you know. And I love that. I love that. Why make up a mythical place? Like Stephen King is he always, 9 times out of 10, his stories are set in Maine. And, that's because he grew up around that area and he knew that area, and you write what you know. So stories always feel a little bit more personal, regardless of how out of world they are, if they're from where you're from, and you can tell that with the writing. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you did that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of doing the Stephen King thing in that so I have 3 published books right now. I'm sure we'll get into it, but I have 2 other manuscripts that are drafted, but I'm currently figuring out what I'm doing as far as publication for those. And they're different in that they're both individual like standalone or series starters
Hmm.
that are not related to the first series, but they're all still in New Haven because there's still
Awesome.
so much that you can do in a place like that.
Oh, and I love the stories where you can say, okay, so whether you say it or not, in your mind you can go, okay, these are set in the same world. So, in your other book, which has got nothing to do with what the trilogy we're talking about today, you can go, oh, maybe not, oh, maybe the character from here will technically appear or not appear, and it's just you'd think that I'm a big fan of those. You know how you've got the CW superhero verse, Flash, Arrow, and
Mhm.
then all the crossovers. I'm currently rewatching the Flash at the moment, and I love the fact that I know, okay, the Green Arrow might show up here, or this person might show up because they're all in the same world, and that's what I love about Stephen King's work. He has a show called Castle Rock. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's set in the world of that he's created, but it's got characters from the Shawshank Redemption and the Shawshank Prison. It's also got characters from Misery, and he just sort of subtly hints at all that. So I absolutely love that. Your books are going to be set in the same world.
Yeah, and it's like crossing Stephen King with Brandon Sanderson in that they are not necessarily they're not connected in that it's like alternate universe.
Yeah,
It's like AU New Haven. So like we've
yeah.
got 3 books in this version of New Haven and we've got this other book in this version of New Haven. It doesn't mean that I couldn't bring them together at some point, but
And that's what gets me. It's always the but. Maybe there might be a small chance that this might happen, and that gets me into it even more.
Mhm. Yeah, I separate them very much with the magic systems as
Hmm.
far as how I'm handling the fantasy part of the urban fantasy.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, let's get into these icebreakers, Ryan, before we go too far.
I know I've kind of diverted it a little bit. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I'm chatty.
We're all chatty. All right. I think I'll go first this time. Mix it up a little.
Oh,
If you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be? And please, please, it's not Miss Universe. Be as selfish as you can be.
yeah, we're saying that let's say all the wars have ended, the world's in peace, there's no famine, there's no cruelty, there's no animal torture or anything like that. Everything is perfect. What would you get rid of?
Okay, so this is I've already had my wish and like we've done away with all of the modern
Yeah.
inconveniences of
Yes.
all that. What would I get rid of? If I could have anything, I would let's go conceptual. I would get rid of mortality because,
Mhm.
it's if everything else was great, then the only thing that I would be disappointed by is that I wouldn't be able to experience it for as long as I wanted.
Now, would you have select mortality, or would you? Because when you think about mortality, if everyone lives forever and we keep having children and we keep having, people keep giving birth and everything, then obviously we're going to run out of space on this planet. Or would you, as part of that mortality, as every child grows, the Earth grows a little bit?
I like that second one. That's better than like that concept of the ever expanding universe is more positive than the slow heat death of the universe. But I would say selective. Like, I don't know if you two watch The Good Place.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
I've heard good things though.
It was, you know what? It's funny because you don't expect it to be as deep as it is, but the ending of that series actually like messed me up real bad.
Okay.
But in the end, like it's this concept of that's more to do with the soul than with than actual immortality. But it's my idea of immortality is people would be able to live as long as you wanted, and then
All right.
Okay.
it's not the curse of immortality, it's like the choice.
Ooh.
Okay. So you've lived for like 200 years and you're just like, you know what? I've seen everything. I've seen every episode of Supernatural. I'm just gonna, I'd like to end. So
it took you 200 years to get through it all. So
exactly.
And ironically, having to watch the entire series would make me want to end.
Exactly.
I'm a hardcore season 5. That's it. Like 5 seasons. That's all it should have been. And I rustle a lot of feathers with that statement.
Not 6 seasons and a movie like Community?
No.
Are we getting a Community movie though?
Yes.
Is that ever going to happen?
Yes.
Allegedly.
Because the last season of Community was a massive disappointment for me.
Yeah.
Because it didn't have Troy.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase was gone because he had a fight with all the writers and he was gone.
He had a punch up with the main
Dan
guy.
Harmon?
No, the main actor.
Jeff
Winger.
Joel McHale.
Yeah, Joel McHale.
That's it.
They had a punch up. He doesn't like talking about it. I saw him talk about it on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast.
Oh yeah, I love that podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching Smallville. He's such a good actor. I didn't realize how good of an actor he is.
He is in my opinion, one of the best Lex Luthors we've had.
Oh no, he's the best.
You think he's the best? Have you watched, sorry to interrupt this, have you watched season 4 of Superman and Lois yet?
No, I want
because then that will change your mind on who the best Lex Luthor is.
Challenge accepted. Because
I guarantee you, by the time you finish season 4 of Superman and Lois,
I'll be
and I was very hesitant at the casting of this guy because he's been in The Walking Dead. He was, he's not a big name, but he's that guy that you go, oh yeah, him. When you watch him in a show. In my opinion, and you know how much we love Superman and Lois, that Lex Luthor is the best Lex Luthor I've seen so far. And that by the way, Ben, I'm a massive comic book nerd. So I've read I don't listen to people whinging about TV shows on Twitter or X or whatever it is because I've read the comics and I'm like, I know where this is going. So I feel like saying, be patient. Just wait till the end of the season. I'm talking to you, Daredevil Born Again people. Wait till the end of the season because it's all it's all part of the plan. Yes. But so I consider myself quite knowledgeable on all comic related topics. And honestly, I started watching Superman. Have you watched Superman and Lois?
Ben? Yeah. No. I used to watch a lot of Smallville, but I haven't watched any of the Superman and Lois.
Well, Smallville's fantastic. Like we all grew. Like I'm assuming you're round about our age, so we all grew up on Smallville, right? Which was great for the time.
To say probably, yeah. But I will recommend, and me saying this as a comic book nerd does give it a little bit of weight, I like to think. Superman and Lois is the best representation of Superman that I have ever seen, and that is even trumping Henry Cavill. Yeah. And I'm a massive Henry Cavill fan.
Yes.
Superman and Lois, it's perfect. It's 4 seasons. and there is not a bad episode in any of those seasons. Tyler Hoechlin is, in my opinion, a god, because I watched him in Teen Wolf as like this badass alpha werewolf ripping crap apart, and for him to go to be the Clark Kent that we all love, and the Clark Kent that is the truest form of media from the comics, in my opinion. Superman and Lois season 1 to 4 is now finished, and I watched the finale and I cried. And I don't cry very much anymore. Like in the last, like I'm serious. Like when I watch things, I'm like, meh. But it literally brought a tear to my eye. And for me to say that as a massive comic book nerd I am, I cannot recommend enough people watch Superman and Lois, because he is the best version of Superman. She by far is the best version of Lois, 1,000,000%. And it's amazing. I cannot, and obviously the guy that plays Lex Luthor in the 4th season is the best version of Lex Luthor I have ever seen.
Yeah.
So
I
I know this is
that.
not this. Yeah, check it out if you like that kind of stuff. Please watch it, because it is really, really good. And you know, we're not getting another season, and I'm fine with that. 4 seasons was perfect. Yeah, 100, and the best version of Doomsday I have ever seen in comics and movies and TV show. So, yeah, that's my Superman and Lois rant done. But yeah, Jamie, when you watch it, your mind will be changed about Michael Rosenbaum's an amazing Lex Luthor, 100%, 100%, and I will stand by him as the second best Lex Luthor. But check it out. Anyway, question number 2 is, and this is me, all of our meetings happen on air. I believe, sorry. So what's something on your bucket list, Ben?
I like travel. So definitely something on my bucket list is I want to go to Japan, or like I've also seen a lot of really good things about going to Taiwan, or even Thailand. I want to go where there's some really amazing street food, frankly, that I can eat. It's actually me being a bit of a foodie shows up in my books. One of my latest reviewers actually said that if her blood sugar goes the wrong direction in the next week, it's going to be my fault because of all the food that I put in my books. So yeah, bucket list is definitely go on like a street food adventure overseas.
That'd be awesome. I think Japan would be perfect for that. Not only does it have the amazing history that it does, but I've seen so many documentaries and programs where they just go down the street and there's just so many different kinds of Japanese food, and oh man, that would be that. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Japan because punk rock is still alive.
Yeah, the amount of local bands, and not local, like bands we used to grow up with that are now, you can't see them in a show hardly ever out here, but you go to Japan and they're there every year.
Do you remember, this is my tangent, you remember the band we used to play with, Batfoot, Ryan?
Yeah.
You know that they went over to Japan, and I think 2 of them came back with girlfriends, and one of them got married.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. I remember those guys. They were pretty cool.
One of them, Craig, I think it was Craig, he came back.
Craig.
Yeah, he brought back one and got married to a Japanese girl. And
there you go. So punk rock. If you don't have a girlfriend and you love punk rock, go to Japan.
Yeah.
You'll be able to watch a punk rock show and find a wife.
It'll make a good reality show.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Ryan's most judgmental question.
Now we're getting along so well already, Ben. But this question will determine whether the interview stops now and I go back to bed, or whether we continue on with this interview. So let's just put a lot of thought into this one, all right?
Okay. It's kind of a two-parter. So one, what is the greatest sitcom ever made? And then if that's not your favorite, or I'd like to say, what's the one that you binge the most, like you always go back to? Because there could be 2 different answers there.
So I don't tend to rewatch a lot of media just because there's so much new media. Like my partner binge rewatches stuff all the time because they've got comfort shows.
Yeah.
But like, I don't tend to. But I will say, so I already kind of did I mention this? I don't remember. One of the best sitcoms of all times, I think, really is The Good Place.
Interesting.
Is that a sitcom? Because I haven't heard much about The Good Place. I thought it was like a drama or something like that.
Oh no, it's definitely so. It's very much a comedy, and it's I guess it's tough because like the definition of a sitcom, it's a situation comedy. So it's every episode these characters are put in different situations
fair
and
point. Yep.
funny things happen. But again, like kind of like I try to do in my writing is it covers some really, really heavy topics on death and dying
Yeah.
and the soul and where that all goes and what happens and it does it in this amazing humorous way. So if that counts as a sitcom, I would say The Good Place. I would say the one that I'm currently binging right now, I'm actually binge watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Which is another really funny one. You know, whether or not you like cop procedurals, like
Yeah.
it turns a lot of that on its head. And frankly, Andre Braugher was a gift to the world that was taken too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I haven't seen it all, but again, it's one of those shows that I start watching, and then like you are 100% correct about new media because I'm the kind of person who's like I need to watch this now. Where Jamie can go, I'll just wait till the season's finished, and then I'll watch it all in one hit. Where I'm like, no, I need it now.
Yeah.
Daredevil Born Again is a perfect example. I'm watching it episode by episode, where Jamie's like, I'm gonna wait till it's finished and watch it, which is a great trait to have if you can, but I can't. I need everything now. So I can say that Brooklyn Nine-Nine has one of the funniest scenes that I have ever seen in any kind of sitcom or comedy, and that's that scene where they're doing the lineup and they start singing the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
And being a child of that era and growing up with the Backstreet Boys is to me. It was I had to hide that I liked the Backstreet Boys when I was in school, and to see that come back and into one of my favorite comedies, that scene I can watch over and over and over again, and I still laugh my ass off.
It's the best cold open of any show.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
they're
I love.
cold...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say their cold opens are legendary.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think Andy Samberg really, this is his shining role. Like he's done a lot in his career, but this, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is what he will always be known for at this point in time. But yeah, and any show that's got Terry Crews in it is just a win for me. You know, the more Terry Crews we get, the better. So, you know, the interview will continue.
Yes.
And
just on that, the best Terry Crews moment of that whole show was like, what kind of castle has wheels?
He has so many of those outbursts that's just like he's so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Like Terry Crews, for me, obviously, aside from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that moment, his role in White Chicks is just phenomenal. Him singing Vanessa Carlton 1,000 Miles is just fantastic, and that's been recreated as memes and gifs and everything. So and you know what, you have convinced me in trying to. I am going to go give The Good Place a go because it's been on my list for a long time. Because my wife got me. I don't know. Have you ever seen 6 Feet Under?
Yeah.
So I've never seen that, and my wife and my father had actually watched that. They've watched it time and time again, and I'd never seen 6 Feet Under. And I'm a massive Michael C. Hall. I love Dexter. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. And we watched that from start to finish, and that was the other show last year that I watched that made me cry at the end. That is and the way that ended in showing you how the characters all went through their life and then how ultimately they ended was absolutely phenomenal. So I've been told a good place is similar vibes to 6 Feet Under. So, like in the way that it talked about death and talked about, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to check it out anyway.
Just a quick tip.
Yep.
If you don't like the first couple episodes, give it more than 2 or 3 episodes, because
Okay.
like you're not supposed to like the main character. And the first episode I watched, I actually put it away for like probably 3 months before I
Okay.
went back to it, because I was like, oh, I don't really care for this. And then like I got past episode 2 or 3 and was hooked for like binge watching the rest of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll definitely give it a shot. I appreciate the recommendation. So I've got 3 new books and a new show to watch from you already. And we're only like 10, 15 minutes into the interview. So well done.
Well,
okay. So the next question is, what's your zombie apocalypse plan?
So the good news is I have one.
Awesome.
So we actually, I have a friend group, and my friend Andy, who I've known for years, he owns a piece of property in a part of Connecticut that's very rural.
Okay.
His house has a well and septic, and he is, so we're Americans. Some of us have firearms and things.
hmm
So like his house and where it is and how it's set up is like where I would want to make the bunker for the zombie apocalypse. So the plan literally among our friend group has always been, it's like Shaun of the Dead, and like step one is like, we're gonna grab so and so. So it's like
Yeah.
step one is you're gonna grab the people in your household. Step two is you're gonna go to Andy's. And then step three is we're just gonna live out our days in the compound.
yeah.
Now, did you? And this is no offense to your friend Andy. I've never met the guy. Sounds like a nice bloke. But does he? Is he a doomsday prepper? Does he have a bunker already?
Oh no, I just called it a bunker. No,
Oh, okay,
he's
fair enough.
no. We're let's say I think most of us are uh like liberal as the day is long, so it's hard to find preppers in that
Oh,
community.
okay.
Yeah.
I love doomsday preppers. That show seriously showed, and no offense to you guys, showed some of the whack jobs you have in your country. Seriously.
Oh my God,
But
I will never argue against there being a ton of whack jobs here.
It does.
oh, we have them over here too, so it's all good.
A lot.
Yeah. Just look at our government. But anyway, that's another podcast.
But
Well, since I met Jamie and our mutual friend Chris, I've never been involved in politics as much as I have since meeting Jamie and Chris, and they've converted me to the libertarian lifestyle already. So I'm 100% behind that. But anyway, it's not the politics podcast. This is about promoting books.
anyway,
But
fifth
no,
and
look, I
final-
think that's a solid zombie apocalypse plan. And I think that's the same with us, where we'll be like, we'll go to Jamie's house. Because Jamie lives in the mountains. And, it's not as rural as you would think. It's a small town.
Yeah.
But his house backs onto a national park or national forest. So, and it's kind of on the hills. So you can see zombies as they try and make their way up the mountain.
Yeah.
So you can sort of pick them off.
and there's a air base. You can see it from my place.
Yeah.
Where all the planes take off and that. So I think the military will help hold a lot of them back.
So that's a solid plan. I think my plan used to be going to. So we have a shop out here like your Home Depot. It's called Bunnings. And
I know Bunnings.
you know Bunnings, awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, my initial plan was I would go there because you've got chainsaws, you've got axes, you've got anything you want to kill zombies, but there's not really food there. So I would still have, and generally a Bunnings is not located anywhere near a shopping center. So it would be a long raid to go and get food. So I figured I'm just going to go and bludge off Jamie. So I'm just going to go up to Jamie's house and just live off his land.
We do have a veggie garden.
There you go. Done.
Yeah, and there's a guy 4 houses down from us who's building a nursery out into the bush. It's like completely illegal. He's building it out into the bush. Like it's just, you've got like the back of the property, and then you've got a gap between it, which is basically the government owns it because they've got to keep it cleared for fire hazards and all that stuff. But this guy's just like, no, nursery, all these plants and stuff, all creeping out right in the bush. Yeah, he had a bulldozer down there the other day, and I'm going like, wow.
See, that part's bold. Like there's a long tradition of growing things you shouldn't grow on
Yeah.
government land.
Jamie has a couple. Jamie has a couple of those down the other side of the street, growing things that they shouldn't be
No,
growing.
they've all moved out of home, and most of them are in jail. Yes, I did grow up with drug dealers, but apparently, and I can't remember where it is, but there is marijuana stash planted in the middle of the bush somewhere. They just went out there and grew some.
That's where you put it. You put it out where
Yeah.
you don't own the land, and then
Yeah.
just, I can't really say much. I live in Massachusetts where it's legal
Like, yeah,
recreationally. So
yeah, yeah.
Look, I support. I honestly support making. I've never smoked it myself, right? But even though I grew up in the punk rock era where it was just everywhere, but I support legalizing marijuana over here in Australia because one, it's not a performance enhancing drug. Have you ever seen a runner or someone smoke a bong and then run really fast unless it's to a 7-Eleven to get some food? And two, on a serious note, as someone who suffers from chronic pain, and my wife suffers from chronic pain, it is really, and as I said, I have never done it, but it is really, really good for people who have cancer, for people who have chronic pain, in terms of easing that pain a little bit. I myself have tried kava, which is legal, it's a similar family, but I've drunk it, and honestly, when I was at my worst pain, that actually helped me a fair bit. So if marijuana was legal, it would probably do a lot for a lot of people who are in pain. And honestly, crime would go down so much because, do you know what I mean? It's cheap as shit, pardon my French. And like, who wants to murder people and commit robberies when you're high? You just be like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, and just watch like a whole bunch of that 70s show or something. But yeah, I fully support the legalization of marijuana out here, even though it probably won't happen for a long time. But as someone who, like, I can deal with my pain, I'm not on as many painkillers anymore. But as someone, my wife, really no painkillers can help her at all. And I've seen what marijuana can do for people like that. I 100% support the legalization of marijuana out here. And I know that's the touchy subject, but I mean, man, it doesn't kill you. It's like, I'm a massive wrestling fan. I watch a lot of WWE, and they have even taken that off their banned substance list that they test for, where you get a 30-day suspension. They don't test for marijuana anymore anywhere. And I just think that it does more good than it does bad, in my opinion. And again, these opinions are just my personal opinion.
Ryan will be running for office next week.
Yeah. No, I couldn't because as we know, and if you listen to this podcast, there is no filter between he and he.
But that's what
So
we
I
need.
just say, yeah, I know, but that's the reason I wouldn't get elected, because I'm not woke. I'm not, I have nothing against. I hate everyone equally, so I don't discriminate or anything. But yeah, that's the reason I would never get elected, is because I speak the truth and I speak my mind. So again, you have to be able to lie as a politician, and I'm not a good liar at all. So yeah.
All right, are we ready for the last question?
Sorry.
Bill and Ted arrive outside your house with their phone booth time machine and say, "Whoa, dude, Rufus asked us to give you a free ride in our phone booth time machine." What do you do? Where do you go?
So that's so difficult. Number one, I do love the Bill and speaking of the things that we grew up with, like, I love the Bill and Ted question. Because yeah, it's very, very, close to the experience. I don't know. I'm torn between wanting to like go back and see a dinosaur and like actually go and like talk to a historical figure, because it's tough.
Mm.
Like if I got to pick two, that's what I would do. Is like, well, first a dinosaur, just like that
All right, we'll make it
that's
easy.
like a
Let's say they pick someone up for you, and it doesn't count as your trip, but they come along for the trip.
Yeah.
So they have
ooh,
to see a dinosaur with you, though.
that's very reasonable. Oh God, like which historic figure would I? You know what? I'm gonna go off the cuff right now and just like this may feel like a throwaway, but at the same time, he's a fascinating character. I think I want to take David Bowie and go see a dinosaur.
Wow. Like dance, dinosaur dance.
Yeah. Well, just
I
he was
can
such an
imagine the song.
icon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I loved
And
him
would
in
you would
movies
you
too.
would you take Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie, or would you take later in life David Bowie?
That's a good question because, but also Ziggy Stardust is like one of my favorite Bowie tracks.
Oh no.
So like good call on that one. Um, I would probably take later in life Bowie because part of what I would want to do is like hear about his experience and like Ziggy Stardust was I think too early for a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
his, like I mean I remember like and the song wasn't a lot of people didn't care for the song, but like later in his career and he did like that I'm Afraid of Americans with Trent Reznor and
Hmm.
like he did a lot of really interesting things.
Well, my introduction to David Bowie, and I always knew who David Bowie but was the Guitar Hero game series, believe it or not, because Ziggy Stardust was actually on. I can't remember if it was one, two, or three. And I used to love because I used to love the solos in Guitar Hero, and Ziggy Stardust had one of the best ones to do aside from Freebird by oh God, I'm
Leonard
going blank.
Skinner.
There you go, Leonard Skinner. Yeah, so Ziggy, that actually got me into David Bowie, and then I went back and obviously listened to his collection, and I thought, okay, so that's why I'm a massive fan of Ziggy Stardust as well, because the amount of times I've played that on Guitar Hero is phenomenal. And David Bowie, I feel like he has three different eras, and it's like three different musicians you're listening to over his career, but it's the same guy, and not many people can do that. So 100% behind David Bowie. I think he'd have some really cool stories. And if you're riding on the back of a T-Rex while he's telling you those stories, why not?
Oh, that's awesome. I think I'd want to, just thinking of this now, I'd go get George Washington because George Washington wouldn't have known what a dinosaur was. The word wasn't invented even then.
Yeah.
And just, well, come on, we're going for a trip, George. I just think he'd come back and just be like, what? You know?
I like
I
that
mean, I,
your choice is to pick someone who you would to just blow their mind. Like
Yeah,
for no other reason, I
yeah,
just want to bring them with me to screw them up for the rest of their life.
yeah. I think we had a guest once say that, you know, to go back and see the dinosaurs and then go visit Steven Spielberg before he made Jurassic Park and be like, I've got information, you know,
I was just
get some
thinking that. I was
accuracy.
just thinking I'd like to go and see the dinosaurs because I'd like to see how accurate, the depictions of them are and how accurate Steven Spielberg was. And there was a show on Apple TV, I think called something about dinosaurs, and they made it was kind of like David Attenborough, but it was narrating on dinosaurs. It was
Yeah,
actually really good. They did two seasons of it, and I'd like to think they sort of had dinosaurs, especially the raptors, more bird-like
yeah,
in like they actually had feathers and stuff
yeah,
like that. So I'd like to go back and see what dinosaurs actually really look like, because all we
yeah,
can really go off is the bones and
yeah.
the skeletal structures of what they are. We could be completely wrong
Yeah.
about what they look like. You know what
Well,
I mean?
the discoveries have been a lot different since Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Like the raptors at the time, I think they found similar raptors after they'd filmed them. But
Okay.
initially, raptors were the size of turkeys.
Yeah.
They were more
Yeah.
accurate in that dinosaur movie that Adam Driver did, where he went back in
Oh,
time and crashed.
65.
Yeah,
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 65. Yeah, that one.
yeah.
That one. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
like that, which you only saw them for about 10 minutes.
yeah. But
But
that was
yeah,
raptors. Also, the T Rex, as much as I loved it, would not be able to run that fast because of how top
no.
heavy it was. If it tripped, it
Yeah.
would just, you know, it's just like there's a
Yeah.
lot. I love that movie. I don't care that it's not entirely accurate. It's
Yeah, yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah.
Um, and it's the reason that the first book I ever read was Jurassic Park. You know,
Yeah.
I would not read as a child, but
And your mum was very smart doing that.
yeah, yeah. And then she
Giving
was,
you that book, I mean, not
yeah,
letting you read, but
not the
yeah.
best book for a 12-year-old,
No, no.
but, but it got me reading. She was like, um, I don't care what it is, you have to read. You know, so I read both of them, and I think I tried reading like even what Game of Thrones books back then or something. Like,
Mm.
you know, but like, I
Game of
don't know.
Thrones is complicated even for me now
Yeah,
to read.
yeah,
And it's still a series that I have not gotten through. I've got all 5 books around here somewhere, but I cannot get through them
yeah.
because just because George R. R. Martin's writing style is very
Tangenty.
yeah, it's good. He's a great writer, don't get me wrong, but it's just not my style.
Yeah,
Um, same as Lord of the Rings. I've read Lord of the Rings so many times. I was lucky enough to have to read the first 2 books at school.
yeah,
But I don't enjoy reading it now because it's not my style of writing now that I'm an older person, like I'm
yeah,
43. I have different styles, whereas when I was back in school, it was just when everyone's I'd just been reading comic books and
hmm,
stuff like that. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And it still is amazing, but I don't really like reading those books anymore.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's the icebreakers done.
Yep.
You have survived. You will now carry on to the next part, which is hopefully
We
less,
are sorry.
hopefully less tangenty, but more
I was just
about.
about to say we are the tangent kings, and that's why we generally go. It's more like three friends having a chat
Yeah,
than a scheduled interview. We
yeah,
have talking points, but
yeah.
we generally go off script. So
This podcast is brought to you by Martin Kearns and the Valor of Valhalla series. In the battle between 2 ancient evils, can one naive young man become the last hope against powerful creatures of legend? Beneath the Veil is the gripping first book in the Valor of Valhalla dark urban fantasy series. If you like reluctant heroes, infernal myths, and bloody epic clashes, then you'll love Martin Kearns' formidable foray into the unknown. So head on over to readkearns.com and grab yourself a copy of Beneath the Veil today. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to it. Ben, now you're allowed to speak. When did your writing journey begin? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so if you want to be specific, my writing journey started very young. Like I remember being in elementary school, like grade school, and I was writing little short stories on little like flip books of paper, instead of playing at recess or whatever. And in middle school, I wrote a short story that ended up winning like a writing contest
Oh, wow.
that is like lost to history forever. But I didn't really get back into writing until probably my mid-20s, and then there was a huge gap. So like my first book, which is My Boss is the Devil, I wrote a good chunk of it in probably 2005 or something like that. And then I stopped. Like I was in a dead end job, or what I felt was a dead end job, and I haven't worked for them for a very long time. So I was using time at work to write the story because I had literally like nothing else of value to do. And so I started writing it and then ended up putting it away for a while until National Novel Writing Month in 2014. And then I finished the draft of My Boss is the Devil in 2014. Edited it, tried to start shopping it around to see if I could find any literary agents that were interested, because at that time, like self-publishing was still considered to be, for people who couldn't really get published. Self-publishing wasn't popular at the time. Got zero interest in the book, put it away again on a shelf. Life got complicated and in the way for the next 9 years. And then it was 2023, and I was on TikTok, and one of my favorite like book related creators, she goes by Atomic Apple Pie. She reads like bad romance written by men, and like, picks very specific passages that are just atrocious and like sprays the screen with a water bottle. Uh, and she's reading this terrible stuff, and I say to myself, like, didn't I write a book? And like, it can't possibly be as bad as any of this. And like, these guys are published. So I dusted the book off 9 years after finishing the draft, and went through the process of revising it and working with some friends on doing another pass at editing and getting some people to give me some feedback on it. And then as I was getting through the process of self-publishing, because I was not going to try to go traditional after my book has languished for like a decade. I was like,
Yeah.
nope, story needs to get out there. I want people to be able to read it. It is allegedly good. In that before you publish it, people are going to tell you things, and hopefully what they tell you lines up with reality, and they're not just being nice about it. And then while I'm getting ready to publish, National Novel Writing Month 2023 happens, and I write the entire sequel in a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And then I just kept going. I wrote the third book in 2 to 3 months in 2024. And then since then, I've written two more other unrelated manuscripts. So, like, hopefully by the end of this year, I plan to have like 5 books published under my belt.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
amazing. How like we've had a lot of authors on, especially I know you're urban fantasy, and we've had a lot of fantasy writers on here. I don't think we've had anyone who's written something that quick before. Was it just like was it just constantly like every spare minute you were writing, or did you have set times where you're like, no, I'm going to sit down and write from say 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock or whatever that may be? How did you get that done so well and so quickly?
So specifically for National Novel Writing Month, which I get, like, NaNoWriMo as an organization has been problematic. So like, just talking about the way that the work is structured around it, the goal is to write 50,000 words in a month.
Okay.
My books tend to be 70 to 80,000 words. And so to hit goal, you have to write somewhere around 1,600 words to 1,700 words a day.
Okay.
So for that month, every day, I would just pick time in the evening and sit down and write. Some days I would write more, some days I would write less. And it kind of like on average, you have to hit that number. So like if I write 500 words today, I'm going to try to hit, 2,000 words tomorrow to try to make up for some of it. So yeah, I was very dedicated to putting words on the page. Like the good news is the sequel came out of my brain pretty quickly.
Okay.
The third book I took more time on, in that like I got that done over 2 to 3 months, which is still like, for someone who, I've got a full-time job, I have a 9-year-old son. I only have him half the time, but like nonetheless, that's still a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just dedicating the time to doing it. So like for the past almost 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, I've literally done some kind of writing related something every day.
Wow. That is true dedication. I mean, I'm not a writer myself, but I read a crap load of books. But to be able, I think you're honestly the first author, or one of the first authors that we've had, that can literally say for the last couple of years, I've set out some time, I've dedicated, and I've completed what I've set out to do. Because most writers we talk to, they go, we try and set time, but obviously, like you say, life gets in the way. But you've got a full-time job, you've got a 9-year-old son half the time, and you're still able to do it. I think that is pure dedication, and I'm assuming that you have really good organizational skills to be able to pull that off. But yeah, you're right, exactly. You know, unless you write full time, which I think we've had a couple of guests on that do write full time. That's amazing that you're able to churn even the sequel out in 2 to 3 months. And the fact that by the end of this year you plan to have 5 published books is just phenomenal. And it's only taken you 2 years to do that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny because so I'm currently working on, so I've got 3 books in the series, which like I said, I'm sure we'll talk about, but I'm currently starting the draft of the 4th book in the series.
Okay.
The series being The Devil You Know. And so like I have this other concept, and it hasn't been flowing as well for me, but also like I have too many irons in the fire because I'm writing a draft of this. I'm editing one of the manuscripts that I have finished. I'm currently editing the audiobook for the 2nd book that I've recorded but not published yet. So like I have a lot going on. So when I say I try to do something every day, it isn't always the same something. Like today it might be writing 500 or 1,000 words. Tomorrow it might be editing 10 pages. It might also be editing 20 minutes of audio. It's just like I'm trying to do something every day. I'm also ADHD and like I hop around a little too much. So
Yeah.
I try to keep it to 2 things, and things fall apart when I try to do too many things at any given time.
Yeah, because you would be, you know, my wife's ADHD as well, so I know completely what you're talking about. So, you know, if you try to do too many things, you could, because I know ADHD people get really hyper focused on something, and I suppose that explains as well why you've been able to churn these books out so quickly. Because once you're hyper focused, you're set on that. And my wife's the same. If she's doing something, she'll be doing it every 3 minutes of her time that she has. You know what I mean? So I can completely understand that. But the fact that whether you're doing 20 minutes of an audio book or whether you're writing 500 to 1,000 words, or whether you're editing, you're still doing something that you're passionate about and every day. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So well done on that.
Thanks.
Now, before we dive into the book series, there is one more question we need to ask, and that's it's called the Andy Cormack question because we once had a guest called Andy Cormack. He's been on a few times, and he brought up the topic of maps in books, and it became like an almost, I don't know, stories to true and fictional debate of, you know, of should we have them, shouldn't we have them, how should we have them, sort of thing. So simply put, the Andy Cormack question is: maps in books, yay or nay?
That's all I get, yay or nay?
Yay or nay. You can elaborate.
Okay.
If you want.
So the answer is yay. But it's really much more important for epic fantasy where you're like speculative fiction where you're making up a world.
Yeah.
Makes more sense to have a map in it because I can't go to Google Maps and look up, you know, I can't look up whatever I can't look up George R.R. Martin's world in Google Maps. So
they need that. They should have that.
Someone probably does. Like if I'm being honest, some fan site already has a Google Mapsable version of it. But but it's funny though, because even in my books, which take place in New Haven, Connecticut, I have been tempted, and for like one of my new books, I was extra tempted to put a map of New Haven in the beginning of the book, kind of marking out some of the territories that are relevant to the story to give people more flavor. But the problem also is you can't just use map. Like, they have to be commercially available. You either have to own the rights to them or pay for the rights to them, and it's a whole mess. Where if it's a fantasy world, you can have the map drawn and own the rights to doing that. So it's kind of less of a thing.
Okay, I did not know that to put a map of a real place in your book, you actually have to buy the rights or something like that. I just thought because it's the world.
Yeah.
It's our world that we live in. It's free use, but I did not know that.
Only if I draw it. That's the thing is like someone made the map. So like I can't put a Google map of it because Google owns that.
Yeah.
If I pull a map that was like a, if I scan a printed map, I don't own the rights to the print, whoever made the printed map, that kind of stuff.
But what is there like a time thing on like because like how what's it called? Public domain works.
Public domain. Yeah, and I have so that's the trick of it also is the map that I was tempted to put into one of my books is like an old-timey public domain map. But then I don't know if that's actually public domain or if it's like the rights to use that version of the map is by whatever historical society published it online.
That's true.
It's like it's one of those things where a lot of times, especially for indie authors, because we're doing all of this stuff ourselves. Like I don't have a legal department to ask whether or not this is a good idea. If it's legally questionable, people usually just say, just don't do it.
No, I get that. So your answer was a yes, provided that it doesn't infringe any copyright laws.
Well, and frankly, that it's relevant because again, like if you can go to your phone and look up where I'm talking about, then great. But like, then I don't really need to include a map. You could do it if you feel like it.
Just add a Google link.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Let's dive in. Let's dive into The Devil You Know. Is it based on a real person? Did you have a boss that was a devil? No, I'm just.
You would be surprised how many people that I have worked with that were my bosses have asked me whether or not it was autobiographical. And I've had to reassure them that it is not.
So it's not based on any boss you might have had that you might have not liked or that you might have it might have angered you in a little way?
So here's the thing. In the book, so The Devil You Know is a series, and just like for those of you, so those who can see, so the first book is My Boss is the Devil. Okay. My Boss is the Devil takes Nick, a young barista who is caught in a dead-end cycle in his life, gets to change his life by going to work for the devil. As far as you can tell, the devil doesn't seem to be the bad guy. So it's not about the devil being his boss that's the bad thing. And that's where it gets into the discussion of what's good, what's evil. Is the devil really bad? Is selling your soul bad? But what if you get to do, like, the whole premise of the book is Nick is a guy who wants nothing more than to help other people, but is unable to do so because he can't get out of his own way. He's a college dropout. He's in a dead-end job because getting a job as a barista was one of the things he could kind of learn as it's more of a trade than like any other retail that you would get into, but isn't food service. So like he got this job because he could, and now he's stuck. And he doesn't know how to help other people other than by putting the occasional dollar in the cup of the homeless person that he passes by on the way into work. And he gets this opportunity to actually make a difference because the devil doesn't just offer him a job. The devil gives him a chance to use that influence to help other people. And then the question is this all just a setup? Is this so that Nick sells his soul? Or is the devil actually not really the problem and is actually the evil of man that is the big the adversary in the book?
I like that. And I think it reminds me of a line that I read in a comic a long time ago. It said, even the villains are the heroes of their story. And you know what I mean? Like everything is not as it seems because they may be trying to, like there are some people that are just really evil and they just want to see the world burn. You know, like Heath Ledger's Joker is a perfect example of that. You know, I've recently rewatched the Nolan Batman movies and, you know, where he just burns up money. You know, he burned millions and millions of dollars just because he wants to. But then there are people who genuinely think they're doing the right thing in their minds. But in our minds, they're the villain or they're doing something evil, but they're doing it for the reason they think they are helping people. Do you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
sounds like a perfect theme among your story.
Yeah, it's similar to that, and it is really more about, so the whole premise is, and I joke about this multiple times in the books, is uh so for the record, I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish.
Mhm.
So the concept of like heaven and hell is abstract to me because I
Yeah.
was not raised in that religious culture.
Yep.
So I always looked at it a little bit differently and said, when I was coming up with this idea for the book, it was, well, what would I do if the devil offered me a job? But then also, like, what if the devil wasn't the bad guy? What if the devil just had a bet with God that they wanted to see which one of them could take custody of more souls? And like that's kind of where it goes, in that Nick has to grapple with the morality of what it is that he's trying to do, and whether the ends justify the means, with this backdrop of, yeah, but this is all very normal stuff. This is all, you shouldn't even have to worry about this. I'm being with me is just as good as
Mm.
being with the other guy. So why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. So
No.
did you do much research into, or I think you probably did, into all the different sides, or like what literature, I guess what I'm saying is, what literature did you read, what movies did you watch to kind of build your world, like the main influences and inspirations sort of thing?
I've studied a lot of different world religion, like including some Christianity,
Yeah.
and like I grew up Jewish, so the Old Testament is the the Torah is the Old Testament,
Yeah, there's
and
some crazy stuff in there.
so, oh my God, yeah. If we talk about future projects, let me tell you about it, because
Yeah.
like that's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm really pretty well versed in at least the broad strokes
Yeah.
of Christian mythos and like God and the devil and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's also I do it um I do a relatively unique take on it, because I don't dive into a lot of like, this book doesn't dive into scripture
Yeah.
for the most part. Think of it like the magic system in these books. It's like a supernatural contract law.
Oh,
Like
cool.
it's if I had to describe it, you know how like there's high magic and there's low magic
Yep.
fantasy. This is kind of like low magic urban fantasy, and that magic exists and the supernatural exists, but not that many people know about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And those that do, it's a special case. So a lot of what Nick learns to do is about utilizing this power of Lucifer to basically think of it like Lucifer has agents, and the agents can make deals, like the
Yeah.
handshake deals with the
Yeah.
devil.
Mhm.
uh his agents can do that in his name, so that's what Nick gets to do. So like I sidestep some of the need for some of the research because I don't go
Yeah.
heavy into scripture,
Yeah.
but I know like anyone who's read it, who cares about it, has said that they were very happy with the level of research that I clearly
Yeah.
did. So will I say how much research I did? I
Yeah.
don't know, but
Yeah.
it's all, a lot of it is stuff that was just already up here.
Yeah. So
And and I
write what you know.
well, yeah, but
Yeah.
also I absolutely do a lot of like on the spot ad hoc research as I am
Yeah.
writing something. If I feel like I don't know it well enough, I do a quick deep dive into whatever it is
Yep.
to get enough of an understanding that I can write it in a way that is, um, if not if not faithful
Yeah.
to the material, at least I'm making a conscious choice to deviate from it.
Mm. So are there any crossroads deals, or do you avoid that?
No crossroads, but there are handshakes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So how many in the series are you hoping for? Do you have an end in mind, or are you just going to keep pantsering along?
I like that you mentioned that I am a pantser. So yeah, so just for folks, so there are 3 books currently.
Yeah.
There's My Boss is the Devil. There's Dueling Shoulder Angels, which is the second one. So we've got Nick and God, and then we've got Dueling Shoulder Angels, which gives there's a supporting goth witch in the first book named Amy, who gets a more prominent role in the second book. That's her on the cover. We introduce God in this one, and God is definitely not the God you would expect. And then the third one, which is Too Many Gods in the Kitchen, introduces the third POV from another character that I can't mention because it spoils some of the first and second book. But this is where we start getting outside of the strictly Abrahamic, deities and pantheons. Where's the end? I want to. So this isn't a series that I don't do cliffhangers. I hate cliffhangers. I want a story, even in a series. I want the story to wrap, and then I want you to build on it. But if I have to read the second book to understand the climax of the first book, I'm going to be disappointed because I don't like books like that. Honestly, it's to your point, Ryan, of I feel like I've kind of lost the taste for epic fantasy in many ways. Is the investment is like I want to be able to read the book, and then if I like it enough, I want to read the second one, but I want to be satisfied with the first one. So I write my books like that. Each story wraps itself with whatever the story is that I'm trying to tell for this specific set of characters. And it gives you the promise of future books if there's more story to tell. So the way that the third book wraps up, there's definitely the possibility of more, but I could have left it there. However, I'm not leaving it there. I'm currently working on a draft of the fourth book in the series, which is actually I can give you a quick teaser. So where we had the devil, we had God, we had kind of branching out from Abrahamic religions. The fourth book focuses on death.
Okay. I want the fourth book now then, and I haven't even read the first three.
Well, with the way he writes, the speed,
Yeah, I'll have it. We can get it in a couple of months.
Have you made a deal with the devil to write fast? Or
So I would be having less angst right now if I had made a deal with the devil. No, I am unfortunately hoisted by my own petard of success writing.
Yeah.
In that a lot of my books have kind of they just flow. Like I really do like the idea of writing in a flow state as much as possible.
Yep.
You can't always do it. It doesn't always work. Like that's why you have to set aside time and do it. But at the same time, my stories kind of come out linearly in that, so one of my friends who's an early reader of my books has literally told me, and she's like a professional editor. Like one of her paid gigs is she does editing for indie authors. She doesn't edit my books. She's just a big supporter. But she hates me for how clean my drafts are. Like has literally said, I hate how clean this draft is. Like she's done reading it. She's read it the whole time as I'm writing it. And basically she
can't point out mistakes and things that should change.
Yeah. There are bits here and there, and she kind of does read-alongs, and that she's not just an alpha reader for me. She reads chapters as I write them. And so she kind of helps me tweak as I go along. So by the time we're done, she's already kind of given me her feedback on like things that she thought really needed to change.
Yeah.
But even then, like most authors that she knows don't write that clean. I think it's just like my mind isn't orderly except in that regard, and that stories want to be written like with the end in mind.
Yeah.
But that's turned into my problem with like the latest things that I'm trying to write, in that I'm having a harder time seeing where the story is going.
Yeah.
A lot of people do say when we ask that question in terms of how long are you making the series, they're like, oh, we want it to be a trilogy. We want it to be a trilogy. Which is perfectly fine. And to be honest, that's a lot of the high fantasy authors we talk to, because they've set it out. This is the world. It's kind of the Lord of the Rings model. We want to make it a trilogy, and then we can expand on that in a different set of books. I like the idea, like, for example, the Harry Potter books. Like, I grew up on the Harry Potter books. I've read them all. And the fact that, J.K. Rowling said, I don't know when it's going to end. When it's going to end, I'll know. And, that's what she technically did with Deathly Hallows. So I like that idea. I like the fact that I'm not going to read these 3 books. And if I absolutely love them, which I probably will, I'm not going to have to go, oh, that's all I'm going to get. Because, you said you don't know where it ends. You'll write until, obviously, it feels like an end. And I like that idea a lot more, especially with good stories, because for me, I'm that kind of person. You put out, even if it's 11 in the series or 12 in the series, if they're all good, I will read all 12. I'm the person who wants to watch every season of Supernatural, because I've only ever gotten up to season 7. But yeah, like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, Jamie. I'm not saying 5, I'm done. And I understand that's because when the show took a different turn and everything like that. But I will keep watching. If it's a good show, or if it keeps enough to keep me interested, I will keep going until the very end. So yeah, I really like the idea of you don't really know where it's going to end. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to diving into these books. I'll probably hopefully start a little bit later today.
Well, now that you've gone to the Pantheon, there's a lot to choose from. So, you can go anywhere.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You've got so much room to move.
The funny thing is, though, because like with the 4th book, and I'm diving into the concept of like of death, I am going back to the well of it's being written from. It's going to involve other pantheons, but like the thrust of the book is focused on like the Christian angel of death.
Oh, cool.
Which, like, I've already done more research on, because when you're writing a book and you're like, what is the name of the angel of death? And like, that gets complicated. And I can tell you there's not actually a really good answer depending on which Abrahamic religion you're following.
That'll be a lot of fun. I can imagine. I love the death from Supernatural, going back to Supernatural.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
Just that actor, the way he carried himself, and it's just, it was just so well done.
And I love the fact that he loves Chicago deep dish pizza.
Death has to love something absolutely mundane.
Exactly.
Like, there is something like the whole idea that death is so intrinsically meshed with humanity and yet is somehow not in any way human themselves is like, I love when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I just thought, and the actor that they got to play Death would perfectly cast, because I could picture Death looking like that. And you're right, you're freaking Death. You're one of the ultimate, and you just have to go to Chicago for some deep dish pizza. And I love that they've given him a little bit of humanity in terms of what he loves. You're one of the 4 freaking horsemen, dude. Like, seriously, like, I just need to go get some pizza. I think that's another really good thing about Supernatural. And I just love it when they ground such a powerful deity with just a little bit of humanity.
Yeah. Well, you gotta make him relatable,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, one question that I always ask all the authors, and I absolutely I have seen some bad ones, but I absolutely love yours, is the cover. The cover for all 3 books. I love that you've made them different, but you've stuck with the same theme in terms of design and the black image with the bright color in the background really makes it stand out. Did you do the covers yourself, or did you hire someone to do the covers? And how did that all come about? And how did you get the idea to make the covers the way they are?
Right. So I absolutely did not do the covers myself. I'm not a graphic designer. And then I will say, on top of that, graphic designers are not cover designers. It is a subset. It is a specialization in that, like, because cover art is very specific and also involves like, typography and like a bunch of other stuff to make a good cover. Covers are something where indie authors often get caught up in that they either try to do it themselves to save money and then they end up doing a really bad job,
Yeah.
or they spend way too much money on a cover despite not being able to make that money back.
Yeah.
Because no offense to us indie authors, having an amazing cover does not actually guarantee you that you're going to sell your book.
Yeah.
And like, if you're talking about investing anywhere from a few $100 to $1,000 on a book cover, especially if it's like your debut novel, just it's a losing proposition, money wise. So the good news is, and I will shout this from the rooftops all day long. So this is not a trade secret. There's a company called Get Covers,
Okay.
and they are there's a company that has like high end, medium, and low end. By low end, I mean like options. So there, the middle is a company called it's Miblart or Miblart. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Yep.
So these folks are all, I think they're in the Ukraine. And so Miblart is like their mid range. If I wanted to commission a cover from Miblart, I'm talking like $200 to $300.
Okay.
It was my first book, and I was on a budget. Get Covers is Miblart's budget arm. And so what they do is you give them a concept. You pick some examples off of like Shutterstock, and you say, okay, I want my cover to be like this with these kinds of elements, and here's a couple examples of stock art. And then they go and they design a cover. And then one of the big things about Get Covers is they have unlimited, and I'm not even going to put quotation fingers around it. They have unlimited revisions. You can have as many revisions as you want until it looks the way that it does. And you're going to need them because they're a budget group, which means they're like using their newer, less experienced designers to put together these covers. So you're going to need, like, I think I probably went back and forth with them 15 times before My Boss is the Devil's cover looked like it did. But they did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get nothing but compliments on my covers. I love
Yeah.
them. And they did a great job. And so I said to them, hey, I've got this idea. I want the silhouette of a guy with like this kind of shadowy devil behind him. And I want it on a red background with like a pentagram. And they were like, we got you. And they sent me the first draft and it looked nothing like this.
Oh,
And I
Okay.
said, guys, I don't know what you did, but like, here's some examples of silhouette covers and kind of
Yeah.
like what I want. And then their next version was like the first version of this cover.
Okay.
So like you have to have some artistic sensibility because they can send you something and be like, that's great, that's good enough. And
Yeah.
like it is not good enough. You
Yeah.
are going to need to go around and round with them.
Yeah. You got to know what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Get Covers did all my covers, and the nice thing with them is have each one I say, okay, now do it like the last one, only
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
And that'd be a lot
So,
easier on them too. Like,
so do you think you'll be using them for all of your future books?
So I already have covers designed for the two. So I have two other books that I have written drafts of. Now it's a little complicated because I am actually working with an agent to like submit these two new books to see whether or not we can get any like medium to large
cool, yeah.
publishing houses interested in them. But this agent also understands that if we don't get enough bites, I'm just going to self-publish them
Yeah.
eventually. And by eventually, I mean probably within like 6 to 8 months. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to wait that long.
Yeah.
So we're going to see what we can do. But I already have covers for these books, and I've already used Get Covers for both of them. And ironically, for the first of the two, I wasn't that pleased with what they did, so I went to Miblart, their like higher end, and I had them do a concept, and I hated it enough that I went back to get covers and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you just like tweak this a little bit more?" And now I love it.
Yeah.
So like all of my covers so far, all five, so three published books and the two that haven't been, all get covers.
I think that I'm really impressed by those covers. That because to me, as not being a writer, the if I'm going to try a new author, obviously if I've found an author I love, I don't care what the covers look like, I'm going to read it. But for me to try a new author that I haven't spoken to on this podcast, the cover's the first thing that's going to grab me. And I'm going to go, that looks cool. And then I'm going to read into it. Or if I'm on Amazon or Kindle, I'll read the first chapter for free and go, okay, yeah, cool, I'm into it. Or no, you know what, it's a good cover, but I'm not into it. So the cover is like 50% of why, or probably even more of why I'm going to grab that book to begin with. So your covers, and I love that's what you've it's the colors that grab me before anything, and you've used three really good standout colors like the red, the green, and the yellow to entice me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a look, and then I look at the titles. I'm like, okay, I'm in, and then I'm going to start reading them. So that's what I always like, and because I grew up on comics, I'm a massive fan of the art. So that's why I always like to ask that cover question. But I think your covers are really well done.
Thank you.
They literally, before you even said anything, the colors were what stood out in my mind. And then obviously talking to you, I'm going to read the books. So I think they're very well done, and hats off to Get Covers for doing it, and obviously yourself for guiding them to where you want to go.
So are you sticking to one series, or are you going to, are there other ideas in your head to, like, would you consider breaking away from urban fantasy at one point? Has your brain taken you somewhere like that? Or are you going to stick to what you know?
Okay, so you're just talking different genre. So like, because the other two books are different series, but they're still urban fantasy. I have this big list of ideas because I can't stop my brain from coming up with more book ideas. And I have a concept for kind of a, I don't even know if it counts as urban fantasy. Like I have some more maybe strictly speculative fiction stuff. I have a concept for more of a post-apocalyptic progression fantasy.
Nice.
That I would like to write. Ironically, I'm still planning to keep it in Connecticut and that area because it's post-apocalyptic. It's just what happens afterwards. So I feel like I'm doubling down on the whole, like, no, really, all my books can be there. But yeah, I do have some ideas. I don't strictly think I want to write epic fantasy because I don't want, like, I do world building in that I want to build out the world that my characters are living in. I'm not super interested in world building from scratch. So yeah, like the other ideas that I have are all still either like close to urban fantasy or are more progression fantasy that happen in the real world, but it's not urban fantasy because cities are, it's different.
So do you ever drive around Connecticut and just pick locations in your head and incorporate them into your book? Maybe change the name of a coffee shop into something else?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of funny. So this series, I rename everything. There's a restaurant in book one called Cafe 126 that's actually a French restaurant in New Haven that I've been to. The coffee shop that the main character works in is like actually, sorry, that coffee shop is the one place that doesn't exist.
Okay.
I just made that one up, but everything else, every restaurant that they go to, every business that they go to is a fictionalized representation. In my two new manuscripts, I actually that's not true. In one of them, I actually go so far as to use the real names of places and have gotten permission from the owners to use their business names in the book.
Well,
That was my next question. Have
Marketing.
you ever thought about going into like the real places and going, hey, I'm a writer, I'm writing about New Haven. Can I use your business name in the book? So you just answered that question that I had. So yeah.
If you want to know, the funny thing about it is business names, even big business names, referencing them in your books, even having characters go there, it's fair use.
Yeah.
My characters could go to Starbucks and get a coffee, and so long as my characters don't call Starbucks an evil franchise that kicks puppies, it's fair use. The businesses care about being represented well.
Yeah.
The challenge with my book
is not having the devil work for the
well, not even that one. So this one isn't the devil stuff. So the book that I actually named the businesses in, it's actually focused on native and indigenous myths of the area.
Okay.
And the magic system is entirely different.
Yeah.
And the businesses, these characters actually like know the people that work there, and like one place is like a haunt of the evil cabal that like hangs around. And so like I want permission to use the place, because it isn't just they stop in for a coffee. It's like, oh no, this is actually a set piece. But nonetheless, it still probably would be okay as fair use, because I don't portray them in a bad light. The business itself is perfectly clean, acceptable. In fact, like one of them is a falafel restaurant that has been in place since like 1974, and I've been going there for 20 years. So like I gush about the business. It just so happens that one of the characters is like a waitress there.
Well, I think now's a good time to move on to our Patreon stuff. So for those who are not in the Patreon group yet, tell us where we can buy your books, where we can learn more about you, your website, socials, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at my website, which is benschenkman.com. So if you see how my name is spelled there, but it's just benschenkman.com. All of my books are available on Amazon, and they're available in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and the first book is out as an audiobook that is widely available, so not just on Audible and Apple Books, but also Spotify, and all those other like Libro FM and whatever place you prefer to consume your audiobooks. I'm working on the second audiobook now. Hopefully we'll be out by the end of April. And yeah, so you can find me and my socials on my website, and my books are primarily on Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, guys who are not on the Patreon, thank you for listening. Reach out at thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. We have so many people coming on, so if you want to come on, please reach out, but know there's a bit of a backlog at the moment. But we will get to you. Let's move on to the Patreon.
It's funny because I had that same challenge with categorizing my book.
Yeah.
Because it is not paranormal fiction.
Yeah.
Because that will just make people think that there's like werewolves and vampires having sex.
Really?
Do you remember an old show called Gumby?
Of course I do.
Good. Well, this is very much up your alley.
But let me tell you why dogs love watching Bluey. Look, okay, I'm going to give you a real answer and then a funny answer.